if you're a Cowboy fan and you want change and you want hope and all that, and this is probably going to be something that if they change the coach out at the end of the year because McCarthy's contract's up and they don't win enough games and all that, here's your hope. Your hope is they do a real coaching search.
Yes, please.
That's your real hope. And if they don't do that, then as a Cowboy fan, you should continue to think about, well, now this team is really not giving me any hope. You need a real coaching search. You need to go out there and get a new defensive coordinator and get a new head coach and get, and think about these things that, Mike Zimmer and I, everybody knows he and I are friends. Mike will tell you they're not playing well enough. I said that Mike would be a button-up crew. They haven't been button up. They still give up way explosive plays. It's been a problem for them, but if you're going to make a change with the head coach, conduct a real coaching search. That is your hope as a Cowboys fan, because they're going to draft. They're probably not going to sign anybody in free agency. You know? So your hope is, okay, we're going to draft. Great. But how are you going to coach this team? It needs to be a real and exhausting search. If that's the case, you don't need to, hey, let's bring in, Marvin Lewis and have a good old laugh and a dinner. And then, let's have another drink with Mike McCarthy, and this is our guy. If you're Jerry Jones and you're 82 years old, you need to ask Will McClay, Stephen Jones, Adam Pacifica, Todd Williams, everybody that's involved with that front office. Give me the list of all the coordinators or head coaches that move the ball, that call plays, that we think, whether that's pro or college. I need all the names.
Yeah.
And then as you work through these names, then you need to figure out, okay, well then, if I'm going to hire you, who is your offensive line coach? If I don't like your name, I'm not hiring you. If I don't like your defensive coordinator, I'm not hiring you. This needs to be an extensive. You got beat by a very well-coached team yesterday that has a good roster. They have a very, very good roster. They lost their best player yesterday, but for some reason, I kind of feel like that team's going to be okay because of the toughness that they play with.
Yeah.
So, that's my hope as a Cowboy fan. The season doesn't look good right now. There's a lot of problems that you have. And so the evaluations now, do the autopsy on, and you got several weeks left, but do the autopsy, what you think. And if you make a coaching change, make sure it's an exhausting search.
Yeah, you can't settle for a guy who won the Super Bowl 15 years ago again. And I don't know if the Joneses know what they should be looking for. I don't know if they have the appetite for that kind of work. You mentioned the name Will McClay.
Yeah.
I would ask, a group of younger people like Will McClay and Dak Prescott in there. I think somebody has to recognize, that trends are happening in the NFL, and you need to find somebody who can coach that and play call that.
Well, you're married to your quarterback for 4 years. You're married to your wide receiver. That should be item one on the next hire. Who is the guy who could come in here and get the absolute most out of that position? Because right now you're not getting the most out of that position. At least this year you're not. Last year, he was second, but it's a totally different looking attack right now. And I kind of feel like that, the quarterback let you down a little bit yesterday. The play caller let you down yesterday.
All of them.
The offensive line coach let you down yesterday. The offensive line let you down yesterday. The one thing you couldn't do in that game is you had to keep up. Your defense was, But
and the turning point was the interception. Just not seeing it.
Well,
you were looking like, hey, we can go back and forth with you for a while, and then that snapped that momentum.
Well, you're down 10-3. You decide to hand the ball to Ezekiel Elliott several times.
Oh my God!
You're still down 10-3.
I told you they needed to pass on first down, take more chances.
The thing about it too is you decided right before half to go for it. You felt like that you needed to go for it on fourth down, and you tried to run a couple of little pivot routes, and you threw the ball to the smallest guy on the field. And he was completely covered on the play. So now you give the ball to the Lions. Next thing you know, it's 20-3, and now it's 27-3 with them getting the ball to start the second half.
Felt like the Packer game.
Yeah, you panicked a little bit there. You panicked. You felt like and your play wasn't good. That was not a good play call. It wasn't a good route, good coverage. but it wasn't probably something.
It was so bad. How can you have back-to-back weeks where everybody's scratching their heads with QB 1 and wide receiver 1? How can you have in the end zone turnovers that make no sense to anybody?
Well, you try and run it, and we'll get into it at 3:40.
It's just the fact that these guys can't get on the same page is insane.
Well, the thing about it, and this is what's interesting to me, and I'll talk about it now here since we're visiting, is the ball the route that Lamb ran that went vertical, and then the ball went to the outside. The ball in the out. If I'm Dak, I'm looking at that because Brian Branch, the safety, standing over the top. He's standing over the top, and CD runs the route into the coverage. So basically, you got a guy like the corner and the safety sitting there, and he goes vertical on the route. And Dak, I'm gonna say this: if you ask Dak right now, he would probably say, "I'm not going to throw that ball in the middle of that safety standing right there. I'm going to throw this out, and I'm going to tap, and I'm going to get a first down, and we're going to keep moving here." Is what we're doing. Now, not to say I'm not washing my hands of Dak, because Dak had some terrible plays.
No, I get it. But one of those guys was probably right on that play, but the fact that they can't be on the same page is so aggravating.
The same thing. And then the interception that he throws to Branch, there were two of them. The second one was a terrible pass. The first one, though, I mean, they don't even see. He doesn't. Branch is not fooled. You're thinking, oh wait, they run like kind of like they're going to run a smoke screen over there, and Tolbert kind of gives it that action. Branch never moves. He's like thinking no, and then he just sinks. And Dak, I guarantee you, they ran that play 3 times during practice this week, and every single time the corner bit on, okay, and then you throw it over the top, and you keep throwing over the top because you're like practicing it. It's like, all right, that's a good look.
It's definitely going to work out like that on Sunday, boys.
And then in the game, you got a really highly intelligent safety that's standing there. It's like, you're not going to fool me with this smoke screen fake.
Well, the Cowboys don't have an opportunity to get a good look as it pertains to going up against a high IQ safety. So to Dak's credit.
Yeah.
Okay, at 877-881-1053, who wants this job? Asked the 214. They say not many. I think that's wrong. I don't think there's not many that would turn down the opportunity to come coach here. It's a matter of, do you have the acumen upstairs to know what kind of a coach they should be looking for, what kind of a coach can give you an advantage. We've seen this front office make enough correct personnel decisions to have a roster that's close. You need talent, you need salary cap management, you need great coaching. And we have only seen the Cowboys try to get it done with one of those. If you can put the coaching element in place, I think Will McClay and the scouts are going to get back in another good drafting cycle and put the Cowboys in a spot where they can reopen the championship window. But not if you're fighting a tactical disadvantage and a salary cap disadvantage. The teams that get it done really have a keen understanding of fighting the fight to get an edge at every level in every possible way. And then they're adding free agency and trades on top of that. So I do think it all, really comes down to Jerry Jones and his vision. And when you get a head coaching hire, I think it's another opportunity to reevaluate everything, and your priorities in this search and what we believe in as a football team. And every time you bring in a new staff, maybe those guys can have great ideas, that can enable a quarterback like Dak. But I do tell you, it was disappointing. I don't know what you can expect if the guy doesn't have a run game. He's got one good wide receiver who he's not on the same page with, and now he doesn't have protection. I don't know if there's any quarterback that spins that into 30 points yesterday. I don't want to be too tough on Dak, but it was brutal. Watching how he failed to execute and the inaccuracy, the decision making.
He missed some throws.
Yeah.
He did miss some throws. And, and the pressure is something that Dak has kind of dealt with, but he's generally pretty good with that. But yeah, everyone was talking about the ball that went down the sideline to Tolbert and the sun and all that. He didn't have a chance to step up. That was all arm there. He had no chance to even step up to throw that ball. If he steps up, I think he throws it far enough down the field that Tolbert probably is going to get a touchdown out of that.
225. Yeah. I mean, I think when things start going bad for Dak, it spirals in a way that affects his decision making and makes him an even worse version of himself. I think, when you see things go bad for the Cowboys, there's plenty of evidence to support that.
Yeah, I mean they couldn't overcome. Once you throw that interception there in the red zone, everything is over. I think they end up with under 5 yards of total offense in that second quarter after that.
Wow.
They can't do anything. They're completely handicapped, and it's deer in the headlights. It's deer in the headlights for your star quarterback.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, and he's got little to no help.
Yeah,
but he's not doing much to solve the problems either.
No,
his pocket presence is awful.
Yeah.
How many quarterbacks ran? Baker Mayfield's running for almost 40 yards against this team. Every quarterback that went up against him, it's playing man coverage. I can go steal 3 or 4 first downs. Dak Prescott's laboring for 1 yard on a breakdown scramble. Okay, let's do it. He's got nothing from that standpoint of his game.
Makes you want to visit that ankle brace conversation from the offseason. Like, how affected is he? He's obviously getting old, turning down running opportunities. The question is, can he even take advantage of them now if he wants to?
Geno Smith had like 48 rushing yards against these guys.
Okay, the goal now is to tank, says the 225. I think
they won't tank. They'll naturally lose games, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about trying to.
Yeah, they can naturally lose games.
Yeah.
But the fact they're not bringing in anybody, I think, is hey, let's just get through this season, and if we make the playoffs, we make the playoffs. But they're not going to desperately cling to anything, and I think that's the right thing to do.
They just keep playing the young guys.
Yeah,
that's the thing. McCarthy even said it himself, and I think Mike's coming to the realization that he might be. He's like, well, I've dealt with this before. I did it, in Green Bay, because because the injuries that they suffered and stuff. He goes, these young players will be better for it. He might be developing young players for somebody else, is what he might be doing. Yeah.
They weren't developing Tyler Guyton yesterday.
No.
I like the 972. My heart's not in it, boys. It's all jokes from here on out. I'm kind of there with you.
Yeah, congrats on that, dude.
Yeah.
Guard your heart a little bit.
I sometimes all you can do is joke, just prevent yourself from crying.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm brought to tears by this football team, but
they don't care about your heart. They don't care about it.
No.
And they showed no shame yesterday, and we'll get to it a little bit later on in the program. But, I mean, my goodness, you talk about like a coach, why would a coach not want to come here? Well, coaches are used to their owners being a little bit more maybe business-minded than football-minded. But when you come here, it's your owner and it's your general manager who cares more about the dollars than the wins and losses. So if I'm a coach, I'm of course side-eyeing this thing. I'm like, we're doing a tug of war here on the rope, and it's me versus a lot that's too much to handle. I don't know how many coaches you could really bet on to be successful. Would love for them to scour the earth and find the best one, but even the best one is going to have some struggles here. You're handcuffed.
Yes, absolutely. I think all you can do is manage what you can control as a head coach. That would be, a guy with just an A+ understanding of scheme and what's working today. And, you pair that with a good scouting department, they got to get back to drafting. Yeah. If you watch this team play, they're starting to resemble a young, disappointing identity. And that's what they have in Mozzie, Scooney, Guyton now. Young, disappointing. It's once you start messing up your first and second rounders, it's not long until that is who you are, Brian.
I think the thing that I would say that about Mozzie, I agree with that about Mozzie.
You think Guyton's playing well?
I think Guyton. I think you have to give him more than 6 games.
Jury's still out. That's fair.
And I'm just saying that just as a I think you have to give him an opportunity there to, to me, just go ahead and play it out with him. Try and get him experience.
Sure.
Your linebackers.
And until then, you're young, inexperienced, and unqualified.
Well, your linebackers were a young group yesterday that really, really struggled with the way that the Lions scheme. I think young players are generally going to struggle. The thing that we've misevaluated really about this offensive line is plug and play, because for years we've said plug and play, and it's always worked out. And we automatically assume that putting BB and Guyton in there would be significantly better for plug and play. I think like the center right now is, like I say, he's struggling with a little bit of some of the things that's happening to him in front of him. With Guyton, we'll see how that goes. I mean, he's given up pressures, but your right tackle's given up just as many pressures, and he's gotten a contract extension and been here longer.
Yeah, that's tough. That is tough.
So now you're as a whole, I think their offensive line is probably not as good as Brian Bras told you they were.
Well, the good news is they're young and they can improve upon that. I was really hoping to be talking here on a Cowboys Monday about a huge win or at least a close loss that could give us hope.
Give me a moral victory, man.
I don't think any of us picked the Cowboys to win this game.
No,
right?
we didn't.
No. But the thing about it that's disappointing is you believe that your offense could move the ball on these guys, and you didn't. You didn't block very well up front. Your routes weren't very good. you weren't open nearly enough, and your quarterback wasn't very good, and your play caller was poor.